Whoa, hey, this episode of the Deep Lore Boys is not starting like any episode you've heard before. That's right, that's because this is no ordinary episode. This is episode 50 of the Deep Lore Boys podcast and the final episode of season 2. Thank you if you are one of those people who has been with us from the very beginning. It's been an honor to have you alongside us. And if you are new to the podcast, welcome. There is so much you can catch up on and so much yet to come in season 3. Anyway, that's about it. Episode 50, season finale, kind of important-ish. Here's the episode. Hey there, my name's Jesse, and you're listening to the Deep Lore Boys podcast, where Jackson, Matthew, and I delve into the random, rare, and usually ridiculous pieces of human history.
How are you drunk driving in the middle of the Sahara Desert?
He knew that women existed, but never saw one.
Speed skater from the Himalayas. He was super fast.
Got his arm cut off and said, nuh-uh.
I didn't hear no bell.
Okay, so this all started in 1974 in the city that this podcast is really recorded near in Buffalo, New York. Buffalo, for those of you who don't know, has a team called the Buffalo Sabres, and they are notoriously bad.
They're a hockey team, and yeah, it's rough.
You are a hater.
Not super great. Anyway, don't get me started
Hockey
on this
lore.
because it definitely does make me mad. As of recording this podcast, the Sabres have a fighting shot at making the playoffs this year, which, I mean, fingers crossed, buddies, but it might not be the case. This all starts in the year 1974, 4 years after the Buffalo Sabres were founded. The NHL draft, which is like where they pick players on like minor league teams or from colleges, it was going to be conducted in secret this year because the World Hockey Association was coming up, and they had just started, and they were likely to start stealing players that NHL had already had their teams draft and start putting them in the World Hockey Association, and they were nervous about this. Instead of just 7 drafting rounds like what most sports really have and what NHL has now, they did 25 rounds, all of which were secret and conducted over phone calls so that the World Hockey Association wouldn't know which team got which player, which, as you can expect, would have been miserable.
I'm not gonna lie, that sounds exhausting.
Yes, the coaches hated this. One coach decided that enough was enough. So Punch Imlach, the Sabres coach, was really annoyed and decided to make up an NHL player to draft.
Wait, hold on. This guy's name was Punch?
That was his nickname. I don't know if that was his official name.
Oh, his name was George.
It's his real
Punch.
name now.
Okay. It's a strong nickname. I like it.
He made up a Japanese player named Taro Tsujimoto. He played supposedly for the Tokyo Katanas, which is like the closest name that that Japan would have to the Buffalo Sabres.
Very real team, yeah.
But he came up with this whole story about him and how he was like a speed skater from the Himalayas. He was super fast. Like everyone was like no one wanted to be against
Tokyo
this guy.
or the Himalayas, man. I mean, like that's
so he was from Tokyo, but he trained in the Himalayas, and that was why he was so
course.
fast, apparently, because somehow that makes complete sense. The journalists, however, snapped this up, and they were like, "We have never had a player from anywhere in the continent of Asia before." So like sports news stuff took off with this, and they were like, the first Asian NHL player, like this is going to be huge. Like this
He's
amazing.
here.
Literally, no, he didn't even exist. So then there was a training camp that met in Niagara Falls for like, I believe just the Sabres. And they were all expecting Taro to show up. Or Taro, and
like, dude, he's gonna be here.
Like, where's he gonna be?
From Japan. He trained in the Himalayas. It's crazy.
And then at the hotel, a Japanese guy happened to walk through the door, and he looked kind of confused. And he went up to find his room, and somehow the Sabres president was convinced that that was Taro. So he got up and went looking for him, and with several of the players, they all went looking for him around the hotel. And that was when Punch Imlach was like, no, this is... No, like I gotta tell them this is fake.
Poor guy
start.
just gets like stalked by like the entire hockey team. They'll
From
just
Buffalo.
follow you. You don't even know why they're chasing after you.
He had never seen a Japanese person before, never seen an Asian man in his life. So he was like,
He
that's
just didn't
gotta
know
be
what to do.
him.
He's like, that's him.
I don't know. Apparently, it was like coincidentally they were
funny.
like, "Well, we only have like we're only waiting for this guy," and then within like the 2 minutes, like he happened, like this Japanese guy walked through the door, and they're like, "Okay, it's got to be him." So
There he is. They slap him on the back, hand him a pair of skates, like, hey, Taro, welcome to the team. You play tomorrow. Hope you're ready.
Dude, that would be
Wait,
such a
what?
good movie if they they're like, yeah, we're starting next week, and he has to like go on some training montage and like get super cracked at hockey.
So the president of the Sabres,
God, dude.
Seymour H. Knox, he thought it was funny. He liked it.
It is funny, objectively.
It is, yeah.
The NHL president, Dave Campbell, did not.
Imagine he was really angry.
He was
Boo.
very annoyed, and he ended up.
Dude, he was the one that made the rules about it, right?
He was the guy who had the idea to conduct a 25 stage long draft over
Yeah, like
several
okay,
days.
he's the reason that they did this. Like he
Yes.
can't be annoyed.
So
Like, he is the problem.
in an actual quote, he just says, "I did not find it funny." That is all he said.
He just said it as it is.
But then he made them change the record books for that year's draft to invalid claim instead of Taro Tsujimoto. So
Aw.
he's not officially in the
What?
record books anymore because Dave
What?
Campbell didn't want it.
Oh,
What? That's-
Taro,
dude.
rest in peace.
Man, he had a good run. Dude, so there was no Taro Tsujimoto, but he lives on. He lives on in our hearts. I mean,
He also lives on to a point in Buffalo. The Sabres fans used to chant, "We want Taro" every time they were losing a game, which is quite often for the Sabres.
That's funny.
A few years ago, a bison at the Buffalo Zoo was actually named after him.
Oh, no way. So
Dude.
Taro Tsujimoto, though he never began to live, has not died in a way.
he's just kind of like a legend, dude. I'd love to see him like pass on further and further and become like a historical figure, like 1,000 years, or like historians debate whether or not Taro
Whether or not
Tsujimoto-
Taro Tsujimoto was a real
'Cause, like
a
he
real
has
hockey
to have
player.
been.
So the name was inspired by a Japanese American, Joshua Tsujimoto, who owned a grocery store. And I guess they also asked Joshua Tsujimoto, like, what's a common Japanese name? And he was like, yeah, probably Taro.
They were actually very, very polite about doing this. They did ask Mr. Tsujimoto, who owned the store, if he would be okay with having his name around there, or like if people would potentially make a joke about it when like they like. And he,
Oh, so
he
they
said he
asked
was
him for
good with it.
permission to use his name.
Yeah,
first.
so they didn't just want to
That's
randomly use
respectable.
his name and were
That is
people
actually
would, like,
really
comment.
respectable. It's-
Do you think it was
Um,
him who walked into the hotel and got mobbed by the team?
it's,
Oh man, that would have been so funny if he was also in on it.
Oh, and he was like,
Dude.
yes, that's
He's
me.
like, yeah, it's me.
Taro Tsujimoto.
He could even like show his ID and like cover over the first name, and if it says Tsujimoto, like it's hard to lie, like it's hard to counter that.
He's
like,
covering it with his thumb.
just like holds over the first name. It's like it's me.
He's like, can you move your thumb? No.
No,
I like to hold the card like this. I think it's really dumb how crotchety they were about the joke, or the president or whoever. Like, I didn't find it very funny, but the 25-round draft pick was quite...
like really,
intriguing.
like,
Quite a knee
like,
slapper
he's such
right
a
there.
butt. Like I don't know, that makes me mad.
If they had drafted Taro Tsujimoto for real, I mean, based on the lore they made for him, it sounds like the Sabres would not have the track record that they do of sucking.
I mean, it sounds like he was cracked. Yeah.
Man, it would have been really funny if they had kept up the bit, and when fans were like, where's Tsujimoto? They're like, oh, jet lag, he got sick, he's sitting this one out in the next game. Like, oh, he's on the bench, we're actually saving him for the end, like secret weapon in case we lose.
They just keep on making excuses. How long do you think they could hold up with that before people start getting like really mad? Like,
Actually, they're still going to this day. For 60 years, they have been
He's
lying
still
about
going.
Taro Tsujimoto.
people are
He's
still
still
believing
registered
it.
on the team, but he's never played a single game. He's the best player, though.
Yeah, I mean, he'd have to be at that point. He has his 0 losses.
Guys, we have a request from Sushi here. I see you, Sushi. I got you, bro. The truck that managed to run into the tree of Tenere. I don't know what that is.
Wait, do I know this story? Oh, I do know this story.
Oh, is it that one tree that's just out in an open desert and it's all by
Yes.
itself?
It was the most isolated tree on
No.
Earth. The only one for
No.
over 400 kilometers.
No.
Is it weird to say that I feel bad for this tree?
How do you hit a tree? It's the only tree
The only
within
one.
400 kilometers.
And in 1973, a truck driver crashed into it
No.
and knocked it down.
No.
No.
So it was the last
How?
of a group of trees that grew back when the desert was much less dry than it currently is. In case you guys didn't know, the Sahara, it's been getting progressively drier, right? And the Tenere Tree was the last of these, super old trees that used to grow in the desert. It was the only one still standing, and a truck driver managed to
No.
crash into it.
Dude.
Oh, apparently it was hit by a drunk driver. Okay.
Yeah, he was. How are you drunk driving in the middle of the Sahara Desert?
And he
What?
managed to hit such an isolated target. Like,
He hit the only, like,
Even
what?
Even
That's-
drunk, I think this was intentional. This was not an accident. Like, there's no way you
that's what it
accidentally...
seems like to me. And that's the perfect excuse. Like, oh, I was drunk. I don't know.
I guess,
Well, okay. You're free to go.
Apparently the driver was following an old caravan route that apparently used to drive past the tree.
Yeah, I'm
I guess,
sure
which
that
is
the
what you're
tree
seeing.
was a part of the allure. I'm sure he wasn't just driving and then was like, "Oh, a tree!" I'm sure
That would be
like,
really
trying
fun,
to
though.
get to it. Like,
Tries to swerve,
he just...
rolls into the tree.
In that case, I'd almost feel bad for the guy. It's like driving just
Well-
assumes there's nothing because he's in the desert. And he like closes his eyes and he's like, "Yeah, nothing's going on here." And he's like, "What?"
Oh,
They also put a metal sculpture in the desert where the tree was, and it's crap. It looks hideous.
Aw. Dude,
No.
don't
Do you
diss
see the picture
okay?
of it?
They do what they can. It just doesn't.
I don't even know what that is. There's like
No.
a flat screen TV strapped to a pole with some
It'd
like
be-
broken rake handles in the middle of
it'd
the
be
desert.
so much better if it was actually like a sculpture of the original tree, but that's not what this is. This is not a good looking
I
sculpture.
mean, then again, we're talking about the middle of the Sahara Desert here. Like, have you seen where the tree currently is? I mean, they built like a whole shrine for it, and it's
I
still
know, they
there,
built a tomb that looks awesome.
which is surrounded by other trees.
Let me kick this one off here. Gotz of the Iron Hand. He was born in 1480, and that's it. That's the whole topic.
That's
No.
it. He did
Um,
that. What's
he
crazy
was-
is that he's still around today.
He's
How does
still
he
around
do it?
now.
Doctors
He's the
hate
oldest
him.
man. No, so I'm just going to jump right into his name. He is known as Gotz of the Iron Hand because he was this knight who lost his arm. It was shot off by a cannon, or like the cannon, I guess, hit his sword. And so the sword then cut his own arm off, something like that. But in any case, he lost his whole arm, like from the elbow down, and recreated an arm for himself made of metal so that he could still fight.
Dude, he's like a berserker. I'm sorry.
He Guts of the Iron
Guts-
Hand? What? Some sources say that he said, "Get back, guys. I'm about to show you why they call me Goats Berserk." And then-
he berserked all over the place. Is that what he did?
Well, they were saying that a cannon shot at him and that somehow his own sword was turned against him. I don't know how exactly... Does that mean he amputated it?
It says it was 1504 during the War of the Succession of Lansut. I don't know. Anyway, he was in a mercenary army and they were fighting for the siege of Landshut, which is a city. He lost his right arm at the wrist when cannon fire forced his sword against him. Oh, I thought that he lost it like down at the elbow. Okay, my bad. So all I can imagine that means is that like somebody fired a cannonball at him and it hit his sword and that like guillotined his arm off. Or maybe it just ripped his sword.
Maybe
out
it
of
just
his
ripped
hand.
straight through everything. And either way, it doesn't sound pleasant at all. But I mean, he pulled through. He also Goats. invented the phrase. I mean, it's a phrase we can't really say here.
Yeah, I did read that. So there was this one time. There was this one time. Okay. He was invited to surrender by the Swabian liege, and he reportedly said in response, he can lick me where the sun don't shine. That's not exactly what he said. We can't repeat it on the podcast.
Basically the Swabian League said, Gotz surrender, and he said that as a reply. From then on, everybody called it the Swabian salute in his honor.
So did everyone then quote that as
everyone
Swabians
quoted
then?
it. That I guess that was just kind of like the famous phrase. Everybody just thought it was so funny that it stuck. Which is really kind of funny to me that Swabia is just nobody knows about it anymore at all.
Well, Gotz really got him.
Gotz just destroyed them.
He erased them from history with that one.
Single-handedly.
And the thing is, I think he actually was forced to surrender in that incident anyway, but we don't remember that. We just remember the diss.
We care that he did that.
In 1519, so this was after he lost his arm, he signed up in the service of Ulrich, Duke of Württemberg, who was at war with the Swabian Liege. And I think that was, or the Swabian League, I'm not sure. I think that's when the you can lick my, happened.
That's when that kind of happened.
He actually ended up raising a war against Nuremberg at some point, from what I'm seeing.
Dude, what?
What is that war?
Nuremberg?
Legit, like less than a century before the Nuremberg incident.
Oh. If listeners don't know, you should check out Season 2, Episode 23. We talked about the Nuremberg UFO incident. It's one of those old-timey UFO stories with lights in the sky, and it was interesting. Something
definitely
happened
aliens.
to Nuremberg. It looks like for all of the war and battle that Gotz participated in throughout his life, he died pretty peacefully. After the French campaign, he returned to the Hornburg and lived out the rest of his life in relative peace. He died on the 23rd of July, 1562 in Hornburg Castle at age of 81 or 82. He married twice and left behind 3 daughters and 7 sons to carry on his family name.
Which, dying at 82 is very
pretty
impressive
good
for that time, especially after missing an arm. Got his arm cut off and said, "Nuh-uh."
I didn't hear no bell.
That is impressive. So shout out to him. Also, I found the guy who stuck himself in the castle door. This has nothing to do with Goats of the Iron Hand. That was the wrong guy. This guy's name is Martin Moniz. 1147 was the year of this battle, and he was a part of a Christian invasion force in Portugal led by Afonso I. And basically, they were like, you know what? We're taking Lisbon. We're taking it back because it was under Muslim control at the time.
Yeah.
And he didn't want, basically he saw the Moors shutting the castle doors as they were trying to get in, and he was like, absolutely no, you're not. So he ran up to the doors at full speed and dove into the doorway and lodged his body in, effectively allowing his fellow soldiers to apparently arrive soon after and secure the door, which eventually led to the capturing of the castle. And the entrance, he died. He was killed, and the entrance was dubbed Porta de Martim Moniz, which translates to the Gate of Martim Moniz.
That's honestly kind of awesome. Imagine lodging yourself in the door, and there's guys on the other side, and they're like, "Can you get out? We're closed." It's like an elevator closing.
Yeah, like
so he just tries to get in.
I was more thinking that scene in Prince Caspian where the Minotaur.
With the Minotaur trying to hold the gate up. Yeah.
Well, so Martin Moniz and Goats of the Iron Hand, they would have been good buddies. I could see them being drinking buddies.
Yeah,
maybe in Valhalla, they're there right now, cracking a cold one with the boys. I think this was a listener request, but basically there was this monk who went his entire life without ever laying eyes on a woman. He knew that women existed based on like stories, but never saw one. And honestly, there has never been a more Sigma individual than this guy. You can say like, yeah, I'm not interested in dating, only making money and trading crypto, but you have nothing on this guy.
Yeah, there's an article from 1938 talking about a man 82 never saw a woman. Without ever seeing a woman in the 82 years of his life, Mihailo Toloto has died in Mount Athos Monastery in Greece. Neither had he beheld an automobile, a movie, or an airplane.
Oh, man. So even if you could go without seeing a woman, you've still seen
Yeah.
an automobile, an airplane, or a movie.
None of them. His mother died when he was born, and he was brought up in the monastery where no woman ever enters.
Or anything really ever entered for that matter. Like, man,
Yeah,
he had
no,
to have lived the most boring life ever, though.
Yeah, I mean, no women? What did he do all day?
Here's the
Well,
thing,
no,
though.
he never saw a car. Like,
there's
no
a picture
cars
of him.
or women? What even is left after that?
Have you seen the picture of him, though? Okay. He looks extremely dripped out, to say the least. He looks like a wizard.
Let me Google him. Can we get a picture in the chat?
This is what a lot of monks look like. I've seen a lot of monks drip like this, but he...
Oh!
I mean, you have to respect the fit.
He's a wizard.
You really do.
Look at this dude. I just put a picture of him in the Discord chat for everybody listening live. Imagine going up to this dude and he's like, "What's a woman?" You make a "that's what she said" joke and he's like,
"Huh?"
It's not funny.
Thing is, I feel like there's no way he didn't
it.
know what a woman looked like. But I guess if there wasn't any, like...
So I've heard this story, I mean, many times before, and I heard that his only, like, vague idea of what a woman looked like is that somewhere in the monastery there was, like, a statue of Mary somewhere in there, and
So
that
he
was,
got,
like, the closest thing to what a woman might look like. That's what I heard from somebody. I have no actual source to prove that, though. So
I'm sure that he must have, like, seen a picture, right? Like a diagram? I don't know, or at least seen Mary depicted.
A diagram? Like, what they had? Like,
I don't know. He lives in a monastery. What do they do? Read books all day?
Yes.
Like that. He had to have come across.
So apparently, yeah, this monastery is pretty big. It's on like a little island, and apparently not even female animals were allowed to enter it. So like,
oh wow,
yeah. So the reason he was in this monastery was just, I think, because he was an orphan. But the men there prohibited any entry of women because the men were supposed to be practicing absolute celibacy with peace. Basically, that's just an excuse for the boys to hang out. But they pretended like it was this big deal. The monks, they said they were of the opinion that the presence of women alters their path toward spiritual enlightenment. So, yeah.
Wait, hold on. Have you seen the monastery in question?
Can we get a picture of this? The ultimate super gaming house?
Let me, boom. There, we'll send that over there.
Oh my gosh.
Look, yep, there it is. This is where this guy was. Okay. This looks like a freaking Dark Souls map or something. Like, okay, this is
dude,
crazy.
This looks like the ultimate layer. You take the blue pill, your waifu becomes real. Take the red pill, a lifetime of spiritual enlightenment in a Dark
like,
Souls
giant
map.
Yeah, a whole bunch of people are saying
boys.
that women must stress people out, and that's why this man lived like above even like the modern life expectancy.
That's why he lived to be so old. Not a gray hair to be found. Imagine, like, he's still alive to this day. He sees a woman and just crumbles to dust. It's like a vampire with a crucifix. Hey again, it's Jesse. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Deep Lore Boys podcast. If you had fun, please share this episode with one of your non-reptilian friends, and we'll see you next time. Until then, I hope your day is nothing short of interesting. Take care.
I'm gonna go post that one on twitter.com.